In South Florida, a Secret Service agent just facing a judge after he was arrested in a fraternity hazing incident. The agent is among 3 people accused in a series of beatings with canes and paddles. At least one victim was sent to the hospital with kidney failure and required surgery. The Secret Service says its employee is on administrative leave and has been since the agency was notified about this incident. NBC News legal affairs reporter Gary Grumbach joins me now with more on this. So, Gary, what are we learning about what happened in this incident and the alleged role of the Secret Service agent?
Yeah, we do know that 29-year-old Secret Service agent, former Secret Service agent, now on administrative leave, Marquez Christopher Pinder, was placed on administrative leave after victims reported several days of beatings back in April related to a University of Miami NPHC fraternity. In a hearing this morning in state court, he was ordered to not have no contact with anyone involved in the situation, from the victims to the other defendants to anyone related to Kappa Alpha Psi, that NPHC fraternity. He held the title, apparently, of Dean of Pledges for this Kappa Alpha Psi fraternity at the University of Miami there in Coral Gables. And the allegations are really striking here, so to speak. They are paddling their butts and their backs. Victims reported urinating blood, just horrific stuff here. Backside was bleeding through the underwear and the pants of one of the victims, according to an affidavit written by his local police down there in Sweetwater, Florida. And had the victim not sought emergency treatment, they say he could have suffered from renal failure and potentially even died. So some very serious allegations here against this Secret Service officer today.
Yeah, really graphic allegations, Gary. We know that hazing is already illegal in Florida. Both the University of Miami and this fraternity also have specific bans on hazing. So how are these organizations responding? Do we have a sense of whether anyone on campus will also face consequences?
We're not hearing a response from the University of Miami or the fraternity just yet, but what we are seeing is this rash of hazing incidents around the country that you've seen over the past couple of years, and states and localities taking these incidents incredibly seriously, right? This is something that in recent years has gone from just being a minor crime to a very serious incident, as we've seen people die. We saw the student at Penn State University die after some serious hazing incidents. So this is certainly something they're taking very seriously and not letting any sort of incident go by without addressing it.
And Gary, this is not the first incident involving the Secret Service drawing attention recently. Talk us through some of the other headlines with the Secret Service recently.
Yeah, of course, this was a very serious and isolated incident there related to the University of Miami and a fairly new officer to the Secret Service down there in South Florida. There have been other incidents related to the Secret Service over the years. Recently, a couple weeks ago, we saw an incident where a member of the Secret Service was put on leave after discussing his unhappiness with having to travel J.D. Vance and his son from their home at the Naval Observatory over to Joint Base Andrews for some golf lessons. Apparently, he was unhappy with the way the Vances were treating the members of the Secret Service and were having their travel pop up at perhaps the last minute for things like golf lessons that are not necessarily part of Vice President's duty. And so things like that have happened. Of course, the Secret Service is filled with thousands of agents, so things do pop up occasionally. Vicki.
Gary Grumbach, we appreciate it. Thank you.
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.